what it is that you want to create or manifest. So in this episode, I dive further into an energetic that can really affect our manifestations from being successful. And that is that it's actually not our job to control how our manifestations turn up. And that we want to remember this when we start to call in what it is that we want. I'll also share how we sometimes aren't even aware or we're unconscious to the fact that we are always actually trying to control the hows, whether we're aware of this or not. And then towards the end of the episode, I share a personal example of an aha moment that I had last year in regards to a larger manifestation that I was calling in. And I really hope that it maybe triggers an aha moment for you too, as this example really demonstrates all of the different topics that I'm talking about this week. So the push-pull energies of the last few months have been highlighting how there are some things in our lives that perhaps need to change. This energy is bringing our awareness to the ending of an old story and the starting of a new one. Over the last few months, maybe you've felt the urge to go in a new direction or have had some new ideas, or perhaps there's been some sort of events that have caused some tension or some drama in your life, pushing you to really create some changes that you perhaps desire. And so these stories or these changes is actually a theme that will play out this entire year in 2021. And I just want to say, although I know this tension doesn't always feel nice, as, we just don't have all the answers or pieces to the puzzle yet. But the thing is, we actually need some tension in order to create and implement change. And I love thinking about this concept of tension because, we can look at it and see it within our own lives when things are going wrong, or perhaps things aren't feeling great, or, there's some negative emotions that are brewing or building up that it's attached to some sort of event. And we know that this tension is just a motivator, is just something that is triggering our emotions to let us know, hey, we need to make some change, and that change is perhaps on its way. And now, of course, all of this tension is playing out for all of us on a personal level, but it also is on a larger collective global level as well. We can all agree that everything that has gone down in the last year or so has caused quite a bit of tension and has accelerated and highlighted the fact that there are many things that could be better with the systems that we have in place at the moment, and how we could be doing things in a much better way that can be more beneficial for the earth and for society. But in order for all of that change to happen, we must have this tension, and as I always say, we must break down in order to break through. So, as I was saying, with Pisces season upon us, this is the perfect time to kind of take some time to reflect upon what these energies or events or triggers have been trying to show you and what kind of tension you've been feeling. As Pisces represents the end of the zodiac calendar, it represents endings and new beginnings, letting go, tapping into your emotions or your intuitive and spiritual self, as well as checking into our illusions to see, what it is that's working or not, and to start dreaming up what it is that we want to create instead. I love Pisces energy because it really is a spiritual and creative energy which encourages us to have perhaps a new perspective and to ask ourselves, well, what do we believe in? And to open up to our most higher and authentic selves and what it is that our higher authentic self desires. Then at the end of March, we start the new zodiac calendar year with Aries, which is all about asking for what it is that we want and taking action. But this can only occur when we have clarity on what it is that we actually desire and what we've learned. So in honor of all of this, I really want to dive deeper into the initial creation process when it comes to manifesting the reality that you desire. And one of those very important key elements that go into manifesting our reality successfully is that we need to know or remember that we don't create or control how our manifestation comes in. The how is actually the universe's job to take care of and not ours. And when it comes to the initial stage of co-creating with the universe, our job is to listen to what our authentic and higher self actually desires, and then to set the intention of what it is that we want to call in. And here's the thing, when we're calling in what it is that we want, we must only focus on the ultimate end result or the dream realized, and not how that end result or dream will come in. Now, this can be hard to remember at times, and we can definitely not realize or forget that we are actually trying to control the how all of the time. Or sometimes, we can be quite aware of it, only as our logical or rational mind tends to tell us what it is that it knows best, or it knows the way, as it makes more logical sense. Our rational or ego mind really likes to resolve the tension itself, as it really does think that it knows the best way. And now I'm laughing because I have totally succumbed to deciding the how many, many times myself. As sometimes it just makes sense, or at the time, it seems to be the only way possible in order to receive the end result that I desire. Or I've even found myself being unaware of what it is that I've actually been focusing on. I spent some time looking into my past manifestations, and what I saw was I thought that what I was manifesting was my ultimate end result. But after some more digging and being honest with myself, I realized that it actually wasn't, and that it was just another step to get me to my ultimate end result. And yeah, many of us can do this unconsciously if we don't really look at creating and focusing only on our very ultimate end result that we desire, or the very ultimate end result of our wish fulfilled. So I share an example of this later on. So yeah, it's really important that we become aware or get into the habit of really acknowledging or observing whether or not we are actually trying to control or resolve the tension of how it is that our manifestation is going to come in, as well as when. So by us deciding how our manifestation comes through, we're basically putting our blinders on and focusing on that one way and not surrendering to the possible other magical ways in which, really could be more in alignment with our highest good, as well as the highest good of others too. By us wanting to control how and when the thing that we want is to come in, or the end result that we desire is to come in, then this actually restricts the universe and all of the other ways in which the universe can deliver us our end result. We have to remember that our subconscious and the universe says yes to everything, and it says yes to wherever we put the most power. And so if we're trying to call in our desire or our manifestation, then the universe will deliver us our manifestation, and it will deliver it in the most effortless way possible. And this is because energy flows via the path of least resistance. Now, this is true, and we can see it within regular Newtonian physics. We can see it demonstrated in quantum physics, and it also applies to us as well and our energy, because absolutely everything in the universe is made up of energy. So think about it. If we surrender our resistance, then our manifestation will come through. But if our ego is trying to control the how, well, then this is us creating resistance. Because when we're trying to control the how, we're basically telling the universe that we don't trust in it, and we don't have trust in the process, nor that we have trust in ourselves and our beliefs either, thus creating this resistance. It can stop the universe from conjuring up something magical and incredible for us to deliver us what it is that we really want and what's best overall. And now this also goes for timing too. Our ego might be trying to decide or control how and when things should show up, in accordance to what our ego mind thinks is best. But we have to remember, our ego mind is limited by our fears and our past experiences, so it isn't to know when the best timing actually is, nor the how. Our ego only wants to know the how or the when just because it's fearful that it's not going to be okay. And it just wants to know that we're going to be okay. It wants to be comfortable, and it wants to know that we're safe. But the thing is, the universe always knows how and when is best overall. So we need to have belief and trust in divine timing, as that is also part of the process too. By us not trusting in the process, or not surrendering to letting go of the need to control everything, then this is us showing our subconscious that we're not fully surrendering to our belief that the reality we desire will manifest. And so, then the power isn't fully in our genuine and authentic belief that the end result that we desire will manifest. And therefore, it won't manifest, because the power is not in that belief. And now we can try to control the how in many different ways. And this can often be unconscious to us, as I said before. I mean, how many of you out there have thought or have tried manifesting a buttload of money to solve all of your problems? Or perhaps you've been trying to manifest winning the lottery in order to get something you really want, or in order to have the freedom that you want or the more time that you want. These are all examples of you or your ego trying to control the how. You see, we really need to be aware of what it is that we really desire, what the true end result is that we want. If we want more time or more freedom, then we need to focus on us having and experiencing more instances of us having more free time or having more freedom in general, and not focusing on how we're going to get there by winning the lottery. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways in which your ego mind is trying to control the how. This is because it thinks and decides, in order for me to have Y and Z, then I must have X to get me there. And it does this because it wants to know that everything's going to be okay. The ego likes to have definitive steps and actions for you to take in order for you to achieve your desire, because it wants certainty. And it wants certainty that everything will be okay and that you will be safe. Trust me, I know it can be hard to surrender to the process and trusting in the belief that all is actually okay and that what you want will come through. I have a great example of this on my Instagram page where I talk about the time where I was trying to manifest the intro and outro music to this podcast. But basically, I'd been thinking and dreaming up of this podcast for many months, 3 or 4 months. You guys know this. And I think it was in November or December, I decided that I really wanted to have this specific song, Port by OTR, as my intro and outro music. And I remember it got right down to the wire. It was the end of December. I was good to go. I was ready to launch everything. But my manifestation of having that specific song didn't come through. And I was so pissed. There was all this tension because I was ready to go, but I couldn't launch because I couldn't release it without intro and outro music. And I didn't want to just use any old crappy song. And so all of this caused tension. And when we have this tension, it's almost like a test or an opportunity for you to really know and see like, okay, am I going to try and resolve this through my ego mind by settling for having to pick one of the songs that I don't really like? Or am I going to listen to my higher self mind that knows I can manifest, that knows and has the belief that I am going to get the song Port and that it's going to deliver and manifest in the most perfect, timely way? And now you can listen to the full story on my Instagram, but basically, long story short, it ended up manifesting and coming through, and it came through right down to the wire, right down to the very last minute. As I held on to my higher self, what my higher self wanted, and didn't succumb to my ego in wanting to resolve that tension. So anytime we worry or fear that we might not be okay or that we might not get what we want, then all we have to do is to remind ourselves that, it's just the ego part of our mind that's wanting to protect us and keep us safe, and that this fear or worry can cause us to feel tension. So the tension that we're feeling is a good thing, as it means it will get resolved. And that it's just up to you whether or not you're going to resolve it through your ego mind by controlling the how, or by forcing what it is that you want to come through, or you can choose to surrender and trust that the universe will deliver. And so we can really see how feeling tension really does serve two purposes. It can bring our awareness to the fact that we need to create some change, or that we need to decide things that are maybe a little bit different than from what we're experiencing. And it can really give us a test or an opportunity to really choose and feed our power into our higher self instead of automatically wanting to resolve everything through our ego mind instead. And not to worry if you slip into the habit of doing this, as it's something that we've been unconsciously doing for quite a long time. So as you go about your day or your life after you've set your intentions and you find yourself falling into the habit of wanting to resolve the tension through your ego, resolve that tension of not having what it is that you want, then all you need to do is just simply observe or acknowledge this behavior. So in any thought or any feeling or any action where your ego is trying to resolve this tension or force your manifestation to come through, just take a moment to check in with yourself and ask, is this action or decision coming from my ego, Or is it coming from my higher self? And am I trying to control or resolve this tension I feel of not having my end result? Or you could ask, is this action in alignment with my ultimate end result that I want? And now you need to be honest with yourself, honest in asking and honest in answering. Because again, I can't stress enough how important being honest with yourself truly is when doing this work. And of course, the more you surrender to not needing to control how anything comes in, and the more you get into the habit of catching yourself each time you do this, then the easier it actually gets in time. Oh, it's really funny. Each week, I swear, every time I'm recording an episode, my guides always pop in and they want me to talk about time again. So I'm just going to add this little reminder to you. So whenever we get into the habit of stopping and observing or acknowledging our thoughts, feelings, or actions, then this is us actually collapsing time and being in the here and the now. And we want to get into the habit of doing more of that, of being more present and being in the here and the now at this time. Because so much of what we do unconsciously is actually us living in either our past or our future. And we do this by, if we're unconsciously responding or being triggered by our limiting beliefs, that's actually all connected to experiences in the past. Therefore, if we're constantly feeding into that, then we're only creating a future or creating our current reality now based off of things that have happened in our past. So really, we're actually living from our past if we continue to do that. And then if we're constantly feeding our energy or our power into obsessing about the future, whether it's worrying about the future or energetically like really, really wanting or needing something that's different in the future that you don't have now, then that's you actually feeding into the belief or feeding your power into the belief that you don't have that of what it is that you want. Therefore, that's what you'll experience in your current reality, and that's what you'll continue to get in the future. Okay, so thanks for that little reminder. Now, moving on. It is also our job to catch ourselves or simply acknowledge when it is that we're trying to control the how in any moment. And not to worry if we slip into the habit of it, as trying to control things is something that we've been unconsciously doing for quite a long time. Surrendering in, trying not to control how things should be, is a daily practice. So as you go on about your day or your life and you find yourself falling into the habit of wanting to resolve the tension of not having what it is that you want, then all we need to do is just to simply observe or acknowledge this behavior and recognize that you're just trying to fix or resolve the tension that you feel. Just acknowledging that, oh yeah, that's just my ego wanting to know that everything's going to be okay. And so in any thought, in any feeling or any action, just take the time to check in with yourself first and ask, is this action or decision coming from my ego and trying to control or resolve the tension that I feel of not having my end result? Or is this action in alignment with my ultimate end result that I want? And be honest with yourself too. Again, I can't stress enough how important being honest with yourself truly is in doing this work. And the more that you surrender to not needing to control how anything comes in or when, and the more that you get into the habit of catching yourself each time that you do, then the easier it gets in time. The easier it is to notice these patterns, which you've been unconsciously forming all of your life. Okay, so from the previous episode, we can get an idea of how to form new habits that, I've talked about in this episode. And that is by starting small and slowly introducing the action or the habit that you want to create. We've also learnt that these simple actions of bringing our awareness into observing and acknowledging our thoughts and feelings and actions are a way for us to be more present in our lives and can take us out of living too much in the past or living too much in the future. So, being and living more in the now is actually a good thing, as it helps to change us energetically and can help us to further manifest our desires. We've also learned that, we must really give ourselves permission to dream and to not fear our own inner light by playing small, or to avoid playing small just to please others, or even to please or succumb to our own fears ourselves. We also know that lower self-worth or feeding into our fears that are connected to our limiting beliefs don't help in achieving the happiness that we desire either. that they can stop us from living out our most authentic lives and in sharing our genius or our light with others. And now, to kind of wrap up everything that I've talked about this weekend, I'm going to share this personal story, as there are quite a few lessons in it for everyone that really demonstrate all of the things that I've talked about in this week's episode. It also demonstrates how we need to stop looking at our current limiting circumstances as a reference for what it is that we can create for ourselves. So, talking about owning and renting homes is something that has come up quite a lot for me recently in the last month or so when talking to friends. Now, I have friends that rent just like us, and then I also have friends that own homes here in the Sea to Sky. And heck, some of these friends even own 2 and even 3 homes, which is much more of a privilege these days more than ever. But all of them are worried and have been thinking about, whether or not to buy, whether or not to sell because it's a great time to make money, to rent or not to rent, where to live, what to do, what is best. Now, at the moment, the housing market here in BC is super inflated and completely and utterly outrageous. And it's a hot topic for everyone in the area, as having a roof over your head that you can afford is pretty relevant for most people. For me, when I'm having these conversations with all sorts of people, I've been laughing at the polarities of how much my beliefs really have shifted recently. So, about 1.5 years ago, I would have been right there with everyone thinking that, I'd have to get in or I'd have to get out of the market before it's too late. But nowadays, buying a house is something that's not so much on my agenda, as I realized that it was actually my unconscious limiting beliefs that were telling me that I had to buy a home. And that I was actually using buying a home as a way to get me to my ultimate end result. So therefore was actually me trying to control the how. So for a few years, I had fed into my current reality and what it was showing me. My husband and I had formed the belief that we had to sacrifice quite a few important things if we wanted to have a safe and stable home of our own. So our current and actual reality is that in 2016, houses had more than doubled in price in less than 2 years. That there's also a low supply of housing. There's people from all around the world buying up everything just to make money on Airbnb. Plus, there's been a tightening of the lending rules here in Canada. Oh, and throw in the fact that the minimum wage has barely moved to match the amount of true inflation and cost of living that we've seen here in BC in the last decade. So all of these factors have made it much harder to buy than ever before. And so, because we wanted land in a house and not an apartment or a condo, we saw that the only way for us to own a home was to buy somewhere where there was no cell service, where there was unstable internet, where there were constant power outages in winter, where there were no shops, no schools or resources nearby. And that was an hour commute each way for my husband to go to work. Now, what's even worse is that the houses that were within our price range were total fixer-uppers and only just were in the affordability range for us. And we also explored other options, and it's not like we could have moved anywhere else in BC either, because it's like this everywhere in BC. And the only place that isn't outrageous is in communities where there isn't a lot of work opportunities. And not only that, my family and my community are here, and I didn't want to raise a family somewhere where I had no support. Now, all of this reality only reinforced the belief that owning a home in the Sea to Sky or in BC is difficult. So, lo and behold, my reality only continued to manifest and reflect this belief as I was putting all of my power and all of my focus into this. Any time that we would either go to buy a house or try to get a better mortgage or try to earn more money on paper, then the universe would only keep delivering us more experiences that reflected that it was hard or that it was impossible. As we kept on having some very odd experiences that didn't work out in our favor. So all of this difficulty and the energetics around it made me, really start to think that perhaps there was a reason why it wasn't working out. We even decided to sacrifice what we really wanted even more and settled for buying an apartment or a condo instead that was slightly cheaper. But then COVID hit and my income dropped by over 75%. So last year, we decided to hold off. And now, since then, houses have gone up yet again another 10%. But here's the thing. After my new guides came in last year and reminded me of who I really am, I now actually have a lot more clarity on that time and that situation. After choosing to take some time to dig in and get to the bottom of everything, of my limiting beliefs and why I was wanting to own a home, I see that what we were trying to achieve wasn't in fact in alignment with our true and authentic or higher selves. Nor was buying a house going to give us our ultimate end result that we actually desired, which was to live a life that embodied freedom. And, I realized, how on earth were we to have financial freedom with a mortgage that we could barely just afford on 2 incomes? Or how are we able to have free time if all of our time was spent working a bunch to pay for this mortgage or commuting? In fact, now that I've stepped out of my ego mind that was kind of getting sucked into the vortex of what was all happening around us and by societal pressures, I see that the only reason that we wanted to buy was because I had decided that in order to start a family, that I must have a safe and stable home. And that was the reason why we were wanting to buy. But after becoming aware and acknowledging this limiting belief, I realized that it was just a limiting belief that I actually had in fact carried for years, which was that I don't feel safe or stable in my home. And that this limiting belief had formed when I was a child, when my home didn't feel safe or stable. And so here was just another example of how this same limiting belief was carrying over into another area of my life, and that I was unconsciously creating my reality from it. I also realized that it was simply just a societal pressure that was telling us that we had to get in before it's too late. Which I realized may have been true 5 years ago before the boom, but the thing is, the real estate market is just like the stock market. It can also fluctuate. And just because there's been an aggressive upwards trend for the last 6 or 7 years doesn't mean that it will continue to be that way in the next decade or two. I also realized that I wasn't giving myself permission to dream bigger. You see, I was actually succumbing to my reality or my current conditions at the time to dictate what it was that I was trying to create or what it was that I could create. And that I was sacrificing my true desires in order for things to fit my current reality or in order for me to control the how. I'd forgotten that I need to stop referencing to my current external reality to dictate what it was that I could create or could have, and that I can just as easily create a reality or create something better for myself by using my imagination and putting my power into my new beliefs, to focus on the reality that I desire, even if I didn't know how on earth it was possible or how on earth it was going to come in. So by looking at why I was wanting to own a home and identifying the limiting belief that was actually motivating it, I realized that the truth was that I didn't actually have to own a home for now if I didn't want to. I just simply needed to live in a home that I desired. After removing myself from my ego mind, I could see how I was just trying to compensate for my limiting beliefs by sacrificing what I really wanted or desired just in order to have a home of my own where I felt safe and stable. And that it was me and my own limiting belief that had decided that the only way for me to be safe and stable was for me to own a home, which I now could see wasn't true. I was just trying to control how I was able to have a safe and stable home and had decided that the only way was for me to own my own home. Not only that, I even was trying to control how I was going to achieve owning a home, by working a ton more to get my income up on paper so that I could borrow more, and by pushing myself more and lowering my living standards. I mean, no wonder all of these blocks were happening, and no wonder why it never manifested, because look at all of where I was putting my power, through all of those thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and actions. I now know that I don't necessarily need to buy a house at all, and in fact, it's actually quite a ridiculous time to buy for us personally. And nor will owning a house be the answer or be the how in giving me my ultimate end result. So I realized that in order for me to have my desired end result and to focus truly on my desired end result, that I needed to stop putting my power into the limiting belief that I'm not safe or stable in my home. I just simply needed to put my power into a new belief, as well as my actual reality instead, which is right now, I actually am in fact actually safe. Right now, I actually am in fact stable. And right now, I can actually have a family and all the freedoms that I desire in any house that I live in, regardless of whether I own it or rent it. And so now I'm actually so incredibly grateful that we didn't buy any places at all a year and a half ago, as all the places that we were looking at that time were absolutely not in alignment with where I'm wanting to head now or where I am now. Because now I've been given the chance to dare myself to think and dream of something that is bigger and beyond what my physical reality is showing me. And that what I'm calling in now is really so different and is more in alignment with what I really desire and is more in alignment with my authentic and higher self. And so from that personal story of mine, I really hope that you have a much clearer idea of the sneaky ways in which a limiting belief can affect our reality. It serves as a reminder to, get out of the habit of looking to your external current reality or circumstances that are causing us to limit ourselves, and instead to use our imagination and to put our power into new beliefs to form our reality. It's also a reminder that, when things are difficult, or perhaps, aren't going the way in which you hoped or that you wanted, then there might be a larger perspective or a piece of the puzzle that you're just not aware of yet. And to not get too carried away with these lower vibrational emotions that you can feel. For there might be something that you're missing, or there might be something that's even better for you that you're just not aware of yet. I mean, when I was going through all of that at the time, there is absolutely no way on earth I would have thought or could have known that I'd be sharing all of what I learned and all of this to hundreds of people on a podcast. There's also no way on earth I would have known that I am so grateful that I didn't go through with buying any of those properties. So yeah, this has really been a moment of learning for me, and I really hope that it is for you as well. Well, you guys, again, I can't thank you enough for tuning in and for listening. And I really hope that you've gotten something out of my stories as well as the knowledge that I share, whether it's from my own personal knowledge or from my guides. And yeah, if there's any friends or family or colleagues that you know of that really could help or benefit from this knowledge as well, then yeah, don't forget to share it with them. And of course, head on over to my Instagram page at My Everyday Alchemy. I share a lot more stuff on there as well. So lots of stories from myself as well as other people, different quotes or different channelings that I get from my higher self or my guides. And you can get the full story of what happened and what went down when I was trying to manifest the song for my intro and outro music. It's a funny one and you'll really like it. So make sure to listen into that video too. Well, have lots of fun tuning into your higher self and formulating those lists, everybody. And these next few weeks is the perfect time to really start to think about what it is that you really want to call in. All right, have a great week. See ya. Well, that's it for today, guys. And if you like today's episode, please like and follow us on our socials. Share this podcast with friends, and why not leave this podcast a review? Oh, and hang out next for a minute if you want some high vibe laughs. And that I need to own this side of me that has these energetic shifts. Shifts? Oh my God. Shifts. Shifts, not shits. Wait, no, not energetic shifts. Energetic gifts. Oh my God.